We are speaking with Georgina Broadhurst, who is the founder of Forgotten Ltd campaign. Forgotten Ltd are calling for fairness and equality for small limited companies excluded by the UK government's coronavirus financial support packages. Welcome Georgina Broadhurst, founder of Forgotten Ltd, to Surviving2020. Could you give us a brief background about how it all started for Forgotten Ltd?
I run a small business with my husband, and when the lockdown happened, we looked around at the support that was available for us and discovered that there wasn't really very much that was going to help us. Other than furloughing our staff, we were a bit stuck. And I went to Facebook and found that actually there's quite a lot of noise, a lot of people in a similar position. And I joined a private group that was for people that owned small businesses, limited companies. And I watched the numbers of people joining that group going through the roof over the space of about 24 hours. So I contacted the person that started that group and said, let's make this a campaign, let's make this public. Instead of being in a little echo chamber in a walled garden, we need to turn it 180 and we need to campaign. Because if we want to change the status quo, we're not going to do it by, empathising with each other. We've got to shout loudly and try and speak to the policymakers and the MPs. So that was the 9th of April, and that's when we started campaigning publicly and switched it all on and created Forgotten Ltd.
Okay, so you came up with the name Forgotten Ltd for the campaign?
Not personally, but someone in the group, yeah. So we had a lot, the biggest sector of people that are affected by what's going on is the creative industries. And so within our group, we had a really high number of graphic designers, advertising execs, cameramen, creatives, which was really helpful when we were wanting to brand the campaign and come up with name and a logo and everything. It was a quick and easy process because we had all these amazing creatives in the group.
What's happening with Forgotten at present? I know that you delivered a petition in Whitehall on Thursday the 16th of July this week. If you could give us an update as to what's happening with the campaign right now.
Initially, a petition was started by a lady called Amanda Evans, and it was a change.org petition. And in the week that it took for a parliamentary petition to be created, because there's a lot of red tape around those, they take about a week to go live, Amanda's petition absolutely flew, and it had 340,000 signatures before the parliamentary one went live. Now, the parliamentary one has to be debated if it reaches 100,000 signatures, but the change one can be ignored. So even though the change one had, I think it's now at 348,000 signatures, it wasn't really going to go anywhere. But Caroline Lucas, the MP from the Green Party, actually took up the mantle of that and said, right, we can present this. There's a backbench process where you can advocate for non-parliamentary petitions to be presented, and you have to get approval. Basically, it's like a political process, and she did that on our behalf, and we got approval to present it to the Treasury. So we did that this week. We did a big press call, so there's a lot of media there was all the big players, ITV, BBC, syndicated journalists from all across the press, and a lot of MPs turned out in support. So there is a all-party parliamentary group that's been formed on this issue. So the people who've fallen outside the scope of support, and it's got 220 MPs from all across the House, so Tory, Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem, you name it, they're all there, SNP. And a lot of those guys actually turned out to the press call, Tracy Brabin, Jamie Stone and many others. So we're getting a lot of noise and a lot of attention, but what we need is action. And I guess even though we know that there are a lot of Tory MPs who are very sympathetic to what we're saying, we don't seem to have enough critical mass to actually force change. The summer recess is coming up, so on Wednesday of next week, all the MPs go on holiday. So we're coming to quite a funny phase in the campaign where obviously we need to keep the noise going, the momentum going to actually have any impact, but they're not going to be in Westminster. So we are evolving our campaign imminently, and kind of refocusing our efforts on a few different bits and pieces, some of which I can't talk about because we haven't quite launched them yet. But yeah, some sort of different focus, different messaging. Rishi Sunak made a statement at the Treasury Committee on Wednesday, and it became very evident from the way he dealt with the questions from the Treasury Select Committee that he's not really interested in what we've got to say. He feels like his support measures are fair, and he used an expression, it's not that I'm not listening, it's that I had to draw a line somewhere where I felt was reasonable. So in his own words, he thinks it's reasonable to leave us unsupported. So, yeah, interesting.
Bounce back loans, for example, not everybody is able to get a bounce back loan. There is credit scoring involved, and not everybody has a impeccable credit score, and not all the bounce back loans are successful. So yes, yeah, that is a good policy in its support, but not everyone's getting that support or eligible for that support, and to be able to take on debt. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword in that respect.
We know we did a business impact survey of our members, supporters, and 49%, so just under half, have applied for a bounce back loan. But of those, only 42% are successful. So half of us have applied, but only 4 out of 10 have actually secured a loan. So there are a lot of people who aren't getting any support and can't get access to any cash. There's no cash, there's zero. So it's really tricky times across the board, and it's touching every sector. It's brutal.
Statistically, how many people have fallen through the cracks?
So if you ask the Treasury Select Committee, who are the people that have been designated by the Treasury to investigate all of this, so Mel Stride, they would say there are 710,000 directors of small companies that are unsupported. Now, we would say that figure's too low. We would say it's more than that, because 710,000 is the number of one-man bands, so director owners, that there's only them. They don't have any staff. It's just them. So I guess it's difficult to furlough if there's no one else to run your business. But for me, my husband is also a director of my business. So they're assuming that because there's two of us, we'll be all right. One of us can furlough, the other one can work. But they can't expect a family of 4 to exist on £575.20 endlessly, you know. So there's grades of whether it's meaningful or not, and are those statistics actually right? I think they're right. I think all the statistics that are published are downplaying the scale of this.
Could you give us a couple of case studies on the impact of people's lives?
We've got examples. There's a really lovely lady called Tracy who is a director of her own company. Her husband is also a director of a different company. They have a daughter. They live up in the northwest. They actually have quite a large PAYE salary going through every month. So you would have thought they'd have been fine on furlough, but their payrolls run annually, and the payroll was done after the 19th of March, as it has been done every year for the last 5 years. But because it was done after the date that the Treasury set as the cut-off, they can't access any furlough cash at all. So they are completely zero income. Even though on paper they've got a really good salary, they can't access the furlough. I think that's really frustrating for them. A lot of pressure. I've got people like Vanessa, who runs an exhibitions company. So obviously all the exhibitions are shut down, and they're going to be shut down for a really long time. You know, the big Excel, Birmingham NEC events, they take maybe 12, 18 months in the planning, and there's nothing in the diary for her through till 2021 and beyond. She's got 18 staff, or she had 18 staff. She's already, made, I think, 8 redundant, and there are more redundancies in the pipeline because how long can you operate with no income? And from August, the furlough the burden passes to the employer, so it starts to taper. And if you've got 18 staff, just paying the NI and the, those small contributions actually add up. So in the group, we are seeing forecasts of job losses from now, every week it goes on, the job losses are just going to start to ramp up and up and up and up, because people can't afford to keep the staff on in a small business with no income at all.
How can people support Forgotten? There may be some people who are not aware of the campaign. How can they support and lend their support to Forgotten Ltd? Follow
us on Twitter. Twitter is probably a lead medium for us. Love it or hate it, it's a really good way to speak to politicians and journalists. So our Twitter handle is @ForgottenLtd. It's the same. Look for us on Facebook or Instagram. It's the same, Forgotten Ltd. If you do access our channels in social media, there are links there to sign the petition. There is still, the parliamentary petition is still live. You can still add your signature to that. When it tips over the 100,000, then the Petitions Commission have to review that. So it's still a really valuable thing for people to sign that petition. You can write to your own MP. You don't have to be the owner of a limited company to care about limited companies and the impact it will have on your community. Because if you are sitting thinking this doesn't affect you, the reality is, you know, your husband may have a corporate job and you may be a stay-at-home mum, and this may not be on your radar at all, but your hairdresser probably is a small limited company. Your gardener will stop coming because he may go bust. You know, your kid's birthday party, the magician, all these things you don't think about. Your favourite bar that you like to go to, the club night you like to go to with the girls, all these things will disappear. And all these people who are thinking it doesn't affect them will suddenly find that their comfortable life will start to disappear. You know, there'll be holes in the community where there were previously thriving businesses. So write to your MP and advocate on our behalf, because it really will impact everybody, sadly, I think.
Thank you for being with us today, Georgina.
Thank you.